home sweet home. Still don't believe me? You will.
Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn. Today's deck is our very first deck coming out of Duskmourn after it launches to the public on MTG Arena, and I'm super excited about it. I didn't do this as an early access deck because it is an upgrade to an already existing deck, but it's super powerful, and the new cards that we're using are really good, so I absolutely had to hit the ground running as soon as the set launched to the public and make sure I got this deck up right away. This one is called Eerie, Indiana, and the idea behind the deck is we're taking the Nurturing Pixie template, that build of the discard deck that utilizes Nurturing Pixie that you've probably seen making the rounds on the ranked ladder the last couple months, and we're updating it with some crazy new cards from Duskmourn, some new enchantments with synergies that work perfectly well with this deck, and a new rare, but we only add one new rare. There's actually the other upgraded cards that we're adding to this are just uncommon. So if you have some version of the Nurturing Pixie deck already, this is going to be an easy one to sort of upgrade and take for a test drive without having to commit too many rare wildcards, which I'm really excited about. That being said, we are going to break down the video in just a second. Before we do, make sure you like the video if you haven't already. It really does help me out a ton. It helps the video get out to so many more people, and I do need all the help I can get. I'm a small growing channel, and every single like does make a huge difference. So if you wouldn't mind, smash that like button. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an upload. Tons of crazy deck techs coming. Tons of crazy ideas still up here that I didn't get to during early access, and we're going to get to all of them now that the set is launched. I know this one is not the most new idea, but I definitely wanted to get it out of the way and do it right away as soon as the set launched because it's so powerful. I think the upgrades in this deck are just nuts. That being said, the other ideas that I have coming are just really crazy stuff, brand new stuff that really hasn't been attempted yet, I don't think, so I'm excited to get to that stuff. Make sure you check me out Monday through Friday over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/QuarantineCapricorn, because if I'm alive and I'm breathing, I'm there and I'm streaming. This video is brought to you by Wonders of the First, but I'll tell you about that later. Let's break down the deck. Alright, so this deck is absolutely wild with the crazy new updates and upgrades that we get out of Duskmourn. So, first of all, we have a sweet new removal package that works really well with Nurturing Pixie in the form of Nowhere to Run, a 2-mana enchantment with flash. When it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until end of turn, and creatures your opponents control can be the target of spells and abilities, as though they didn't have hexproof. Ward abilities of those creatures also don't trigger, so if you keep this on the battlefield, it gives you a way to target their stuff regardless of hexproof and ward, but the real reason we want it is because it's instant speed removal that's in the form of an enchantment, which is actually really good in this deck most of the time if you're trying to get instant speed removal, which is really key against a lot of the aggro decks right now, being able to take out, you know, slick shots or mouse creatures before they go off with their ley lines. Really important, especially with all of the haste. But being able to get that in the form of an enchantment is really hard to come by, so having an enchantment here that has flash that can be played at instant speed, but is also an enchantment for Eerie triggers and also just a permanent on the battlefield so that we can go wide with permanents for value, which is what this deck tries to do, is really important. In addition to Nowhere to Run, we have Sporogenic Infection. This is 2 mana for an enchantment aura. Enchants a creature, and when Sporogenic Infection enters, target player sacrifices a creature other than the enchanted creature, and then when the enchanted creature is dealt damage, destroy it. Now, this is really good if your opponent has 2 creatures, because you can basically use it just as a Diabolic Edict with upside. Put it on the creature that you don't want to die, and it's almost like it's targeted removal against the other creature, except it doesn't actually target, so it can get around some interesting scenarios, can get around indestructible since it's sacrifice, which is really interesting. And then The other creature that you put it on still has this downside of any damage at all that they receive is going to kill the creature. So you can trade your Nurturing Pixie in combat with whatever has the Sporogenic Infection on, and it doesn't even matter how big it is, it's just going to die. Another really cool interaction with the Infection is even if they only have one creature, normally you wouldn't be able to kill that creature, right? Because you have to enchant that creature with the Sporogenic Infection, and then they have to sacrifice something else. But what you can do is enchant your own creature with the Sporogenic Infection, and then the way the card works is you still target the other player to sacrifice something that isn't enchanted. So as long as you have a player to put a creature rather, to put the Sporogenic Infection on, you can make them sacrifice their only creature. And yeah, sure, you do have the downside of whatever you enchant with this is going to die whenever it receives any damage whatsoever. But since this deck wants to sacrifice things anyways, half the time that doesn't really matter. You just pop it on your own Nurturing Pixie, make them sacrifice their one big creature, and then at some point in time, you're probably just going to sacrifice the Sporogenic Infection or bounce it back to your hand with another Pixie to get more value. So it doesn't really matter that it's enchanting one of your creatures. So it's a nice little workaround there. Definitely a card that's worth pursuing in the future, although I do think the Nowhere to Run is a little bit better, at least on curve. In addition, we're running the brand new Victor card. This is a 3/3 legendary human warlock for 3 mana in the colors of 𝑂𝑟𝑧ℎ𝑜𝑣, and it has this Eerie ability, but it's a little different from all of the other cards that have Eerie abilities because it does something different based on the number of times you've already triggered the ability on your turn. So if it's just the first time you trigger the Eerie ability by having an enchantment enter the battlefield or one of your rooms unlocked, which this deck isn't using any rooms, so it'll just be enchantments entering the battlefield, you're just going to Surveil 2. But that's actually way better than it sounds in a deck like this, being able to make sure you dig 2 cards deeper to get the thing that you need can sometimes make the difference by itself. But it gets even better from there. If it's the second time the Eerie ability triggers, you get to make them discard a card, and this deck just uses almost every card in the deck just makes our opponents discard cards or allows us to reuse things that make our opponents discard cards. So being able to make them discard an additional card if you're able to play 2 enchantments in the same turn is just insane value that sometimes makes the difference between them having to get rid of the last card in their hand or not. And a lot of times the last card in their hand is the card that's going to help them come back from, you know, being down on card advantage and that sort of thing when they are up against a discard deck. So being able to have that extra discard trigger for free sometimes makes all the difference in the world. But in this deck, we have so many cheap enchantments that it's actually possible to get consistently to a 3rd trigger. And if it's the third time that Victor triggers in a turn, you get to take any creature card from any graveyard and put it onto the battlefield under your control. There are a couple good options in this deck, but mainly we're just looking to take our opponent's stuff, since everything in the deck is making them discard all of their cards or make them sacrifice whatever creatures they happen to get into play with stuff like Sporogenic Infection. Being able to take their best creature that you made them discard or sacrifice and just pop it onto the field under your control while they don't have a hand and are completely out of gas can just win the game on the spot, and it can be incredibly satisfying and really, really crazy. And the reason this card is so good in this deck in particular is just because of all of the cheap enchantments that we're running. So I think this deck in particular does take more advantage of Victor than most decks will be able to. So let's start at the bottom of the curve and talk about where that advantage is coming from. We already talked about the Pixie. This is going to give us a little bit of board presence early. It's going to give us another cheap permanent we can sacrifice to some of the things we want to sacrifice stuff to. It's also going to let us reuse all of our enchantments for their ETB triggers and to re-trigger Victor an extra time, so we can even return the Nowhere to Run or the Sporogenic Infection to our hand to reuse them as removal if we want. Really, really valuable. But obviously the bread and butter of the Pixie is returning our 1-mana enchantments that make our opponent discard so that we can get even more discard value super early in the game. So we've got Hopeless Nightmare, they have to discard a card, lose 2 life, and then we have another permanent on the battlefield. Tinybones Joins Up, kind of the same thing. 1 mana, when it enters, they have to discard a card. Also gives us a little bit of extra value, whereas if we play our Victor with it being a legendary creature, we also get to make them lose a life and mill a card, which could put another creature in the graveyard for us to potentially bring back with Victor, which is a nice little bit of extra value as well. So moving on, we've got Bandit's Talent in the 2-drop slot. This card is absolutely insane. Not only does it make them discard when it enters, and acts as another permanent that helps us go wide as a sacrifice target, or something we can return with Pixie to recast to make them discard another card if we're desperate. But it gives us an insane amount of value when we're out of gas and they're out of gas. We just level it up to 2 and they're going to start losing 2 life every turn, and then level it up to 3 for another 4 mana. We're going to start drawing an extra card every turn so that we can keep gassing up and take advantage of the empty board state before our opponent can regain control. So really, really important staple of the card. We're also running 4 Soul Partition, which might seem like an odd inclusion, but it's actually kind of amazing in this deck. It allows us to exile our own enchantments so that we can recast them and get extra value if they're down to just 1 card in their hand, and it's going to be that bomby card that helps them recuperate from all of the card advantage we've gotten. Well, now we can just Soul Partition one of our Hopeless Nightmares back to our hand, or to exile rather, but then play it from exile, make them get rid of that last card. We can do the same thing with our removal in the form of Nowhere to Run and Sporogenic Infection, get more triggers off of Victor by doing it. So it's not as cheap and efficient as the Nurturing Pixie when it comes to, you know, re-triggering our enchantment ETBs and that sort of thing, but it is another card that does allow us to do that. It also doubles as protection. So if any of our key permanents are getting removed by our opponent's cards, like Victor or some of the stuff we haven't talked about yet, we can Soul Partition at instant speed to save it, exile it, and then just replay it again the next turn and continue to put more pressure on the opponent. But the real bread and butter behind why this card is so good, in addition to both of those modes, which is really important, is we can remove our own temporary lockdown. And that is huge in this deck. We're running 4 copies of this because not only does it wipe out the early board against aggro, and a lot of times just put us into a position where our opponent's just going to scoop on the spot, but all of our really valuable discard cards and removal cards with those ETB triggers are all 1 and 2 drops. All of the Hopeless Nightmares, Tinybones Joins Up, Nurturing Pixie, Bandit's Talent, Nowhere to Run, Sporogenic Infection, all of that stuff gets exiled with the lockdown, and then if we can just get rid of the lockdown at some point, we get it all back, and all of them re-trigger their ETBs. So we have nothing but upside in losing all of our 1 and 2 drops to the lockdown, and it can just be absolutely amazing as long as we have a way to get rid of the lockdown. Not only does Soul Partition remove the lockdown, and at instant speed if we need that to matter, but it also exiles the lockdown. So not only do we get all of the ETBs on our 1 and 2 drops again, get an insane amount of value, but then the lockdown's sitting there in exile just waiting to be played again if we ever need it to wipe the board a second time, which is even more value. So lockdown in this deck is nuts. In addition to the Soul Partitions, we also run 3 copies of Rottenmouth Viper as another way of getting rid of the lockdown. So if we don't have a lockdown, we can just use all of these permanents that we're going wide with, including the new Nowhere to Run and Sporogenic Infection, as sacrifice fodder to get a really cheap, really early Rottenmouth Viper, which will come down as a 6/6 even if we cast it super early. Put a blight counter on it. They have to discard something or sacrifice something or take 4. Most of the time when this thing comes down, they've already discarded everything. We've already cleared the board, so they just have to take the damage. And if this thing can survive long enough to attack, it'll attack in for 6, get a second blight counter, and trigger that ability twice, which a lot of times will just win the game. And since this deck has does such a good job of getting rid of their hand completely, a lot of times when the Viper does hit the battlefield, they don't have anything left in their hand to respond with, they don't have any interaction or any removal, and they have to hope to God they can top deck a way to deal with the Viper. But having the Viper also be something that can come down and maybe cost you a little extra mana after a lockdown because you exiled all of those 1 and 2 drops that are your sacrifice fodder. So maybe the Viper costs a little bit extra than it normally would, but it can come down and sacrifice the lockdown so that you not only get the Viper, but you also get back all of those 1 and 2 drops and get back all of those triggers in addition to having the Viper, and that is definitely lights out for the opponent. In addition, we're running 3 copies of Liliana of the Veil because it's just way too good in this deck. As soon as you drop this on a board where they're already pretty much out of a hand, they're trying their best to just jam their creature onto the battlefield so that you don't make them discard it, and then you make them sacrifice it to the Liliana, or some of the cards we already talked about, you know, the Nowhere to Run or the Sporogenic Infection. Liliana is just absolutely devastating, you know, to curve into after all of these discard effects. So being able to uptick, make them keep discarding cards, or -2 to make them sack the thing that they felt like they had to play so that they didn't have to discard it. Super, super valuable. And yeah, that's the deck. There aren't a ton of additions from Duskmourn, but the cards that we did add just make the deck even more solid, add even more pressure that we can put on the opponent, and give us way better options as far as removal in the deck that also, you know, synergize with all of the strategies that we're already trying to utilize with the deck. Nowhere to Run in particular, being instant speed removal, but still being a permanent we can sack to the Viper, and that can trigger the Victor, and can come back to our hand with the Pixie, is just absolutely insane. So this is the deck. If you're interested in the mana base, it is very specific. It's in the description, in the deck list, so check that out if you're interested. We're going to jump right into the games, but first, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Wonders of the First. Wonders of the First is a brand new collectible card game similar to games like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, featuring a unique action-based resource economy that helps avoid pitfalls like Mana Flood or Mana Screw, and a battlefield containing multiple realms that unlock over time as you fight for control of the stones. The first 400 card set is called Existence and will launch to retail in the fall. But playtest team starter kits are available to order now. And they haven't forgotten about all you collectors out there. The game contains alternate borderless art variants, as well as highly sought after limited edition numbered prints, culminating in a 1-of-1 stone foil. And the best part is that the developers have a community-first approach, with 8 print-and-play decks available on their website, as well as a version of the game available on Tabletop Simulator, all for free. For more information, be sure to check out wondersccg.com today. That's wondersccg.com. We can keep this. This looks good. We're gonna have to slow play it. Well, there's a Tinybones Joins Up. That helps. Go with another Courtyard. Pixie. And we can discard another card. As good as Victor is, if we can hold on to a bunch of enchantments, I don't think we slow ourselves down in order to do it. I don't think that's correct. Are you going to dump the card that you just found? Is that the plan? Fair enough. So we'll play Victor. Cornucopia. Might even be right to play Lily here, but we'll play Victor. Track set in the yard. Smite, sure. That's just another card gone that can't hit Victor, which is very good for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, not quite. Temporary lockdown. Doesn't even hit Victor. are you doing? Probably should have played the 𝑚IREX since I'm going to be discarding it. That's okay. That's okay. Down to just this guy. Surveil 1. Lots of potential here. I think we just go... I mean, if we play both Sporogenic Infections, that's still not enough. We should save them. We'll just do this.
I've always hated crowds.
Really tempted to just sack everything and play the Viper, because if he doesn't get lucky and top deck the removal, we probably just win. But I'm not going to. I'm going to show patience and restraint and do the thing. What happened to my camera? Hold on a second. My camera is funky. Camera getting funky on me. Alright, here we go. This is a little slower than I'm used to, but I think we can make it work. Turn 2, we probably banned its talent. Unless we really need to know where to run. And then we could go either way turn 3, honestly. I think if we're worried about their board presence, we probably Lily. And if we're not, we probably Victor. Went 2-3? Well, you did as well as I did, Striker. For sealed, at least. Cacophony scam. Do we just kill it? Do we just kill it now and not have to worry about it? I think so. I mean, he doesn't have the ley line, which is nice. It also sets us up to be able to Liliana next turn and hit whatever he plays and not give him a choice. If we had left the Scamp alive and then Liliana next turn, he could sack the Scamp and do 1 damage to the Lily to finish her off. Just kind of rough. Alright, we're going to go with Victor. And let's see if our opponent has removal. No removal. Could be really good for us. I guess we'll go like this. We'll do some surveilling. We want to find a 4th land, I think. Maybe we don't even care about that, actually. We're gonna dump the Soul Partition, keep the Pixie. And then we're just gonna play Tinybones Joins Up. And make him discard 2. That seems really good. Thanks, Striker. Good luck to you, too. 5 rooms and played all of them. There's a lot of rooms in the set. there's a lot of rooms in the set. There's common rooms. So, you can build a room deck. Do you have removal for Victor now? I feel like you would have used it already. So, we make him discard the last of his cards next turn for sure, right? We just go Hopeless Nightmare. Hello. Hello, Abaddon. I don't know what kind of red deck you're playing. He must have no creatures and all pump spells and didn't get his ley line. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, 5 rooms is crazy. More Eerie, Indiana. This is slow, but it's okay. We have a temporary lockdown, which is nice if we're up against aggro. We're gonna try it. Heartfire Hero. Alright. We'll do Courtyard, Hopeless Nightmare. If we can get lucky and draw into another land in the next 2 draw steps, we can temporary lockdown on 3. Probably take out his board full of mice. More lands? That is rough. That is rough. We could Soul Partition. I think I'd rather wait until it has even more counters. Has to discard a Slick Shot. Somebody's greedy with their mana base. Hit for 6, sure. Nowhere to run. I'll take it. Get out of here. Draws another land. Does he have another Slick Shot? Manifold Mouse. Okay. So we need to try to dump his Manifold Mouse. But do we do it yet? I got a plan. We're gonna let him target his mouse with all of his pump spells, try to get in for double strike, and then we're gonna Soul Partition it. He's gonna be so mad. When it dies, manifest. Get out of here. Get out of here. You get out of here with that. Get rid of the last card. See you later. He's so mad. He's so mad. We're gonna keep this. It's gonna be a little slow because we need to Fabled Passage on 1. Unless we get a little lucky. What would you like to hit, sir? Hits the Nightmare, sure. Pass the turn. We will find a swamp. And then we will Nightmare Pixie. Nightmare. Ooh, that's not good. I mean, we'll take care of it next turn with the Soul Partition. But it's still not good. Bitter Triumph, sure. I have no problem getting the Bitter Triumph out of your hand. That makes me very happy. We're just gonna hold up Soul Partition. Get out of here. Welcome to 6-mana Baloth. Welcome to 6-mana Baloth, Pook. Fine. But you're not going to be able to do it forever, because what you don't know is I got another one. That's right, I got another one. Right, kitten? She knows. She knows. Alright, we need to thin out the deck. We'll grab another swamp. We'll grab Hope's Nightmare. And then we'll do this. Before he can use a protection spell on it. What else you got? What else you got, Pookie? We'll go uptick, discard the land.
I'm tired of your secrets.
And we'll just keep getting the value every turn. All the value. Every bit of value. So much value. Discard. Uptick. We're going to lose our infection, but it's worth it. We get him down to 1 card. We get our Liliana so much closer to the ultimate. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Glissa, glissa, glissa. 4, 5. No, we don't want to go there yet. We don't want to go there yet. We'll do this.
One of your friends has
We'll
to
do
leave.
this. We'll hold on to the Viper for now. Takes 2. We're going to get to draw a card next turn. Dude, that Baloth is never coming down. It does make us discard the Viper, which isn't nothing. We're just going to hold on to the cards in our hand for now.
Off you go.
We don't really need to play any of them. Take 2. We'll be drawing 2 every turn. We might want to discard the swamp to a Lily. Bloodletter, sure. Do we sack the Nightmare? I think we sack the Nightmare. Try and find a way to deal with it. Let's see, Pixie. Yeah, that will do it. That will do it, actually. I think it's too late for Victor. We'll bottom Victor. We'll keep the Pixie. Bounce the Lily. Play the Lily. Maybe we should have kept the Victor, because we're just stocking up enchantments here. We're just stocking up enchantments. Theoretically, we could have set up to use the Victor to get one of his big creatures back. So I think we actually probably should have not bottomed the Victor. We still top deck the Pixie, but I think we keep Victor right underneath it. Alright, well now we start going ham, right? Level up. We will uptick and dump the Tinybones Joins Up. Keep the other stuff. Swing for 2. We'll hit for another 4. The Restless Cottage can swing in, but he really only has 1 turn with it. I don't think he can do enough. He probably attacks the Lily, kills that, and then he dies. The only way we can kill him as far as he knows right now is by him staying at 1 or less cards. So he really needed to hold on to his cards, and he couldn't. He could have theoretically played the Baloth and gained 4 life and bought himself a turn, but his land entered tapped. So he wasn't really able to do that. Alright, and then we kill him. If we didn't have lethal here, I would have cast the Nightmare and done an extra 2 to him. Oh wait, we don't have lethal. Interesting. Alright, so we could have killed him there. That was a bit of a punt. But I'm more concerned with just figuring out the ways in which this deck can function, you know? Deep Cavern Bat hits the Nightmare, so we don't kill him right away, but he's still gonna die on his turn. And now we... I mean, it's not really worth it to do any of this, right? I mean, well, actually, you know what? We can do this. We play Nurturing Pixie. Submit 0. Then we go Infection on our own Nurturing Pixie. Target our opponent. He has to sack the bat. And then we don't even have to wait for him to die on his turn. Instead, we Hopeless Nightmare him right now. And we end it. Seems good. We'll keep 7 here. Pass the turn. We will Bandit's Talent. We can return it to our hand to re-trigger Victor, which is nice. Das Caves. Good old Spyglass Siren. Discard a card, sir. Ghost of Yutai announced. Oh, now I'm excited. That's got to be Ghost of Tsushima 2, right? Just apply Shieldred to the wound, it fixes everything. No, it doesn't. Oh, it's got Kaito. Look at that. Is he gonna do Emblem?
I love a dramatic entrance. Information is its own weapon.
Not too shabby. Alright, Kaito needs to go away. We don't have a way of getting rid of Kaito. Well, we do have Soul Partition. That actually makes it really hard to cast too, right? think we do that before he starts getting even more value off of it.
I'm really not used to
So now he can't ninjutsu it in, right? Because ninjutsu only works from your hand, specifically. Alright, Deep Cavern Bat. I assume he grabs the lockdown here. Trick or treat, give me something good to eat. If you don't, I don't care. I'll pull down your underwear. I'll be pulling down the underwear. Yes. Ought to pay. Ought to pay. Return. Siren coming in. Siren not coming in. Crack your map tokens first. Just plays Kaido. I guess that works.
Don't worry, Pom Pom John. I've got this.
I guess that works. I think we want to play Victor here. Could be wrong. I mean, we could get rid of everything in his hand, which would be strong. But I think Victor would also be strong. Four, 5. The upticks, it's got a 5, 6, and then we can't double block with the Pixie and Victor. Fine. Do it your way. Fine. Do it live. Get rid of your cards. Get out of here. Attack into Kaito? No. Not this turn. We can let him get through once, it's fine. We'll get rid of him eventually. Don't you worry. That's fine. We make you do the thing. We make you down tick the loyalty. It's all good. So lucky drawing a bunch of useless lands, and he's playing them? Is he crazy? He realizes we have bandits talent, right? Wow. 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 Unbelievable. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I guess that's what we do. Sack 4. Get the Viper out. We kind of want all of that, right? Alright, I don't think he can swing through the Viper, which means he can only attack with his 2 flyers. Next turn, we get to kill one of them at least. Oh, right. He gets to do the stun counters. Keep forgetting there's that other mode. I keep forgetting. Can we keep this? I think we can. Yeah, we're gonna keep it. Again, it's another slow one. We don't have the 1-drops that we want to play on turn 1. Hello, 𝑂𝑟𝑧ℎ𝑒𝑛𝑐𝑒. Nice mouse. Very nice mouse. We're going to start with a passage, so we can get it out of the way since we don't have the 1-drops we want. Optimistic Scavenger. Sure. We'll crack it. We'll find a plains. It's very plains. We will play Hopeless Nightmare and Pixie. We could have played the Bandit's Talent instead. But Hopeless Nightmare, Pixie. Allows us to have a 2/2, potentially trade with the Scavenger, which I think is good. Unless they have 2 1-mana enchantments, which, I mean, is possible. Well, I guess also one that just buffs it. That's also possible. But it's fine. So we definitely want to either Nowhere to Run or Sporogenic Infection. But I'm not sure which one yet. He could have a 1-mana thing that saves it. So if we know where to run it, which seems like it's the most efficient thing, we end up in a situation where he could at instant speed use a thing. Right? I think we do it this way. I think we just get rid of everything in his hand. We take whatever the Scavenger's gonna dish out next turn, and then he's out of gas, and we make sure we can land a Sporogenic Infection. If he's got like a shock, and he tries to shock our Pixie in response to us putting the infection on it, that's gonna be really bad. He'll probably steamroll us by the time we recover, so we gotta be careful. Yeah, see? The -3/-3 would have been really bad. Sporogenic Infection wouldn't have. But we can take care of that next turn. Shouldn't be a problem. Get rid of the Scavenger. Thank ya. And then do that. And then swing. Take 2. Now we've got him down to like no cards left. Barely any mana. We've just taken everything out of his hand. Him trying to double down on one creature on the board really helped us. Yeah, there we go. The win. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.